Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dorky Dunkleosteus. I am your curator, Carla. I'm so happy to have you here today. Had a lot of decisions to make about this week's topic. There was some really cool things heading out into the world of research, but what really caught my eye is actually a 300 plus million year old shark fossil that was discovered in Mammoth Cave. A bit about the discovery. So it was found in Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. Also, it was not just the teeth. Of course, everybody knows that fossilized shark teeth are super common. You can find them everywhere, all across the globe. What makes this really cool is that it was also part of the skull. As we all know, sharks do not have bony skeletons. They have cartilage skeletons, and they're very rare to actually fossilize. This one did, and you have the picture right there of it in the wall. You can tell it has some teeth, and it also has part of the actual skull itself fossilized cartilage. That's really cool. It's about 330 million years old, and it's a really cool discovery in Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave itself is the world's the world's longest known cave system at over 400 miles of cave. That's about 643 kilometers. For me to put it in perspective of travel time, I went from Buffalo, New York to Cincinnati, Ohio, several years back, and that was about a 500-mile trip. That took about 8 hours. So, and it was pretty much a straight line on the thruway. So this is a little less than that, so probably maybe Columbus, I think. I'm not really too sure. But because it's a cave, it's not a straight line. It is all sorts of curvy, and there's little alcoves, and there's other pathways you can take in Mammoth Cave. So that's really cool. This is the longest known cave system in the world. Shark teeth have been found in the cave before, but not in that specific layer. So I have my coffee here, and it talks a little bit about the geologic timeline, but it also has a good example of stratigraphy. So what we're looking at here, sorry, coffee, it's an early morning recording today, is a certain layer that's about 330 million years old is known not to have a lot of shark teeth, at least in the cave system itself. That layer doesn't have a lot of sharks. It's Mississippian in age, so it's 330 million years old, like I said. That's part of the Devonian age, so where placoderms were the biggest and the baddest, like Dunkleosteus. It was also a shallow ocean at that time. So to find shark teeth in this layer is really quite cool, because they haven't been found in that layer before. And not only did we find shark teeth, we also found a skull. So the actual shark itself is Cyvodus striatus. As you may have realized in last week's episode, I mispronounced Allosaurus gemedet. I'm going to say it again. Gemedseni as Gemedensi. Latin is kind of difficult sometimes, and it doesn't help that I'm dyslexic. So certain names give me a lot of problems. So Sabidus stratius. So it is an extinct species of shark. It was about the same size as a great white, so it's about 11 to 13 feet long on the average. There's not a lot of information on this species, which is kind of sad because I really wanted to look up more about the species, but I couldn't really find anything about, what estimations it looked like, what kind of feeding strategies it had, um, how, what do we know? Apparently we don't know too much, at least that I could find, that I could understand. Judging by the shape of the teeth, because we have a nice picture of the tooth that was discovered along with the skull, looks to be fairly small. To me, it looks more like a tiger shark. It's a smaller size tooth. It's got really a lot of spikes on the side dentations of the individual tooth. So I'm thinking it was probably a small fish eater. Considering this was only about 11 to 13 feet long, this was not an apex predator during the time it was around. we're looking at something that would have been food for a Dunkleosteus, Torelli, or any of the large-sized placoderms that could get up to 30 feet long. This guy was probably snacks. Kind of cool, though. So, let's talk a little bit about shark history. So, sharks are one of the oldest groups of animals to live on the planet. They first showed up about 450 million years ago in the Ordovician period. Um, that's just the scales, though. So shark skin is strange. It's actually made up of overlapping teeth. They have teeth on their skin. Lovely. So these overlapping teeth actually give it aerodynamics, or rather hydrodynamics, and it allows it to actually sense a little bit of what something is when they brush up against it. They have incredible sensory organs all across their body, and sometimes when they brush up against something, they can get a bit of a taste for it. Yeah, they also have taste buds kind of on their skin. So these early sharks actually were that we just found the scales of their skin. Um, we really didn't find any of their really, really distinct shark teeth. The first shark teeth that we recognize as shark teeth were actually discovered at 410 million years old. That is in the Devonian period. So that is pretty much at the start, midline of the Devonian period, when things really began to blossom in the Devonian oceans. They really started to develop teeth, which makes sense because they were probably hunting smaller placoderms. There were some placoderms that got maybe about 16 inches. They probably would have hunted them, but also would have had to look out for the bigger boys. So this cladogram is a modern shark cladogram. To find one that was for ancient sharks that I could understand and that I could easily translate was a little difficult. It was really, really dense in information and all of the subspecies and subgroupings. And this is just a really nice one because it talks about extant or modern alive species of sharks and rays. So we can see some really good examples of the different types of sharks. And they all have similar body structures because the body structure of a torpedo shape with pectoral fins, um, uh, dorsal fins, and the like are very, very good for an oceanic or a water-based animal. We could get into in a whole nother episode when we talk about fish because cladistically and genetically, there's no such thing as fish. Fish actually have evolved in a myriad of different ways, and it's all that very similar body shape that is very successful for oceanic and aquatic life forms that are constantly swimming and that are breathing water, or rather using a gill structure. All right, let's look at some famous ancient sharks. I chose four of the most strange, my personal favorites, and kind of the favorites that seem to be really popular on the internet. First is Helicoprion, the Pokemon. I'm sorry, I see Helicoprion, and that's all I can think of is Helicoprion. It needs to be a Pokemon. It really, really does, because I would love to hear it um in the anime, like Helicoprion, Helicoprion, Helicoprion. Um, we also have Stephacanthus. That's the anvil-shaped shark. Um, we'll get into each of these individually as well, and actually discuss how unique they are. We have another name that gets me, Edestus. Um, that's the scissor tooth shark. It looks a little dorky, but I'm sorry, Dorky Edestus doesn't sound as good as Dorky Dunkleosteus. And of course, everyone knows of Megalodon, which is actually a species name, not a genus. And that big guy is really cool. I actually do have some teeth I will show you in my own collection. So first up is Helicoprion. It is the it is the tooth whorl shark. We have a great fossil right here of an example of their tooth whorls. And it was first described in 1899. It is a very old, old species, at least in scientific terms. It's one of the early ones. That whirl really confused scientists for the long time. In fact, it's been only recently that we have really decided at least logically, where the whirl went. So it actually was, we believe, lower jaw and acted more like, at least from my understanding, acted like a giant straight razor. So it would go after something like a large orthocone cephalopod, straight shelled nautilus, or orthocone, straight shell with a squid head, just straight right at it, cut the head off, cut the tentacles off, and then eat that. Some early scientists actually would put it on its back. They put it squirreling up over its head, squirreling down below its jaw. It was a really very strange early time for Helicoprion. I could get into a whole episode just on Helicoprion because that's an interesting species to look at. And they could grow up to 33 feet, so they could actually challenge a Dunkleosteus if they lived at the same time, which they did not. Stephacanthus, very tiny. We have a nice little scale thing. It's kind of hard sometimes when you see these rock reconstructions of getting a sense of scale. That's why I really love Wikipedia. Again, to get an idea of how big this thing is. It was maybe 3-4 feet long. It means chest, spine, shark, and it's really cool. It was first discovered in the 1880s, so it was actually before Helicoprion. It had an anvil-shaped dorsal fin that was only found in the males. So we're lucky enough to actually have some sexual dimorphism in this species and genus, and we could actually discover, oh, these were males because we found other things like claspers in the fossil record. Again, super rare, but we have them. And they, of course, are the external sexual um, dimorphic entity, sexual dimorphic cues for a male shark. They have claspers, females do not. While we also know that Stephacanthus also had this anvil-shaped dorsal fin, we really don't know what it was used for because it also had a strange texture and structure to the top of it. We really don't know. At first, when I was doing a little research before I realized it was just a sexual dimorphism, maybe it was a type of suckerfish, but it doesn't look like that was at all. It was just on the males, so it had to be some kind of sexual display. Edestus! Okay, the scissor-toothed shark. So it's in the same group as Helicoprion. Um, we have absolutely no idea how it ate food. We don't know at all. We know very, very little about this genus. The other really cool thing about it is depending upon the degree of the curvature of its teeth, so it has, on its jaws, it has one row of teeth per jaw, the top and the bottom. So depending upon the degree of the curvature of each jaw, you have a different species. Um, these guys look so dorky and cute. I love them. But it's suggested and thought that they would have used them like scissors, hence scissor-toothed shark. Um, and probably ate something that was more in line with squids or cuttlefish, at least, or of course, so cephalopods, probably shelled cephalopods, probably did very similar to Helicoprion, swam really quick, scissored the heads or tentacles off, and then somehow ate them. We really don't know because it has such a strange mouth shape. Um, I'd love to get some more research done on this because it's a strange, very strange shark, but it's a really cool shark too. And of course, everyone's absolute favorite, Carchar. Here we go. Carcharodon's megalodon. So it has been moved from the great white Carcharodon to Carcharoceles. This is because Megalodon is not an ancient great white shark. We have discovered other shark teeth that actually fit it very well into a different genus. But it's still a Megalodon. It means big-toothed shark. So, when Megalodon was first discovered, there was an estimate that it would be over 100 feet long. That would make it about the size of a blue whale. This was completely oversized. at least to modern standards. It was really blown up because they used improper methodologies to estimate how big an animal would get by its teeth. They also made the actual um, jaw much too thick from what we understand now. So, latest measurement methods are estimating that it was probably between 42 to 50 feet long. Possibly some larger specimens could get to 55 to 60, but we just don't think that they got that big. These guys were also not the apex predator during their time on the oceans. They were actually hunted by Leviathan Marelli, which is the giant sperm whale that had both top and bottom jaws, that's teeth could get, I'm not kidding, that about 14 inches and about that big around. Those were giant whale killers and giant shark killers. They are estimated to have finally gone extinct 2.6 million years ago. Let's take a look at their teeth. All right, so I have two teeth from my collection. This is a very small, this is probably from a juvenile. It was found in South Carolina. It does have a shine to it. It has been zepped, so it's been preserved in a method to make it sure it doesn't degrade. Um, so this is a small individual. Like I said, most likely came from a juvenile. It's really cool though. This was the first shark tooth I actually bought. Um, this one cost me $30. So $30 for this guy. It is complete, other than the missing little tiny tip, but it's considered a complete tooth. The other one I have is much bigger. This probably came from a subadult. Um, as you can see, it's missing two of the sides, but it has a really nice, and this thing is thick. He's thick. This has a really, really nice enamel still visible. It's a little bit more worn, so you can actually see where the enamel has gone away. It is broken, so you can see some of the structure inside. This cost me also $30. Why? Because it's broken. So, if you don't want to spend money on getting a full tooth that's very small, get a broken one. They're really cool. This was the nicest one of the lot that I could find. Um, and I still plan on actually taking some Sculpey and actually forming up the rest of the tooth to make a little brace, a little bracket for it to sit in. This is really cool. It's really worn, and you can't really tell on this one any serrations. And this one you can't really either. These are old teeth. These probably were worn out, and they probably just got ejected from the shark's mouth. They're very smooth on the edges. They're busted up. I can't say for sure whether they were busted up in life or during fossilization. Um, I would estimate that these are probably just shed teeth. The other really cool thing about Megalodon is you can find these teeth everywhere. Every single place on the planet that is in contact with the ocean, and some places that are not in contact with the ocean anymore, you have a good chance of finding a Megalodon tooth. That's one of the things I'd like to do is head down to probably South Carolina after a hurricane at low tide and go sitting for meg teeth. You can also find them in riverbanks. You can go diving for them. That's the other thing I'd like to do is get my scuba certification and actually dive off the coast to find some of these in strata. There's also some areas that are now deserts far from the ocean that you can find meg teeth in because they were ancient inlets for the ocean. So Megalodon, pretty cool, one of my favorites. Uh, all right, and how about some cool modern sharks? Of course, the whale shark, the Greenland shark, the great white, and the bull shark. Why did I choose these four? These are all my personal favorites. The whale shark is the largest shark in the world. It is a plankton feeder, so it is a filter feeder. It is super, super mellow. There are people who, obviously, you want to respect the animal when it's in the ocean and when you're in its space. So, but a lot of times, if you are out in the ocean and you're free diving or you're scuba diving and you come across a whale shark, You can oftentimes catch a ride on a dorsal fin or on a pectoral fin, and they're completely chill. You do not want to get on their backs. You do not want to harass them. They are very, very crucial and actually endangered animals. They get tangled up in drag nets and drop nets that are out in the ocean a lot, and that's really a big thing um, that a lot of people are worried about because they are just ocean wanderers. These guys are ocean going; they just wander constantly, and that's their danger is these floating nets that are just left out there for days and days, and they can get tangled up and they can die. Um, so yeah, let's stop with the floating nets fisheries, please. The Greenland shark, that's another really cool one. They are the oldest living creature that we know of that is a vertebrate. So they've actually done studies on the Greenland shark. They can get pretty big. They get about 13 feet long, I think, or maybe 12. Um, Around the size of a great white, but not quite. They're also very heavy bodied. So actually, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. They get about to 8 to 10 feet. They're very heavy bodied, they're bottom dwellers. And these guys live in total darkness. And they don't need to have a lot of light. Occasionally they do come up to the surface. Generally, we're not entirely sure a lot about their lives. In Iceland, they are considered a delicacy, and that is where you get the fermented shark. I would never try that because that just sounds really gross. But these guys can live up to 400 years old. They've actually calculated out because they get these little parasitic worms that attach to their eyeballs. Sorry for anybody who has ickies about eyes. Sorry, I should have done a little bit of a trigger warning there. Um, and they've actually calculated out how long these worms get as over time, and they've actually calculated. Also, they've found some with spearheads in them. Yeah, kind of like bowhead whales that can live up to 100 years old. Of course, the big boy, great white sharks. They are the largest sharks, carnivorous sharks that are around today. They can get up to 13 feet long. The males, the females get much bigger. The largest female right now is called Deep Blue. She is a gorgeous, very mellow shark that they track her and interact with her off the coast of, I believe, South Africa. She is incredibly mellow. They've actually dove with her without a cage. She's curious but not aggressive. And that's the big thing about great whites. They are not aggressive animals towards us. They don't see us as a food source. They don't like how we taste. We're way too skinny for them. And we're just weird looking. We don't look like their food unless we are on a paddleboard or a surfboard. That is the why we have so many attacks on us is coming from mistaken identity from both the great white and the bull sharks, and of course sometimes tiger sharks as well. When we're on a boogie board, we look like a seal. Perfect shape of a seal, especially if we have our legs and arms hanging off. Um, and sharks are not able to investigate any way other than with their mouths. So the sharks really get a bad rap. I love sharks. So great whites are really awesome. I believe that deep blue, she's over 20 feet, and I believe she is 8 foot wide. She's a big girl, and that's so important. They estimate her to be about 50 years old. We do know that great white sharks mature very, very slowly. We don't know anything about their reproduction habits. The last time she was officially seen by researchers, they believe that she was pregnant because she was even bigger, which is cool because that means she had pups or was going to have pups. Hopefully she's had her pups. We still don't know where they go to breed or to have their pups or lay their eggs. I'm not too sure if they give live birth or if they deposit eggs, egg purses. I believe they do give live birth though, because it makes sense for them to be completely up and ready to go oceanically, um, as soon as they're born. So really cool animals, really kind of mellow sharks when you get down to it. Um, yeah, they'll check out things, but they check it out with their teeth. Um, if you look up some of the videos of Deep Blue, you can tell she's huge and she is just so mellow. Her pectoral fins are just kind of off to the side, not arched down, not straight flat out, just kind of hanging out there. And that's really cool to understand about shark behavior because that means she's relaxed. She's used to these researchers that find her and do studies on her. Um, and they always get excited to see Deep Blue because she is an old mama. So, bull sharks. Another interesting and misunderstood animal. Bull sharks can be aggressive because they are one of those sharks that actually can go between salt and freshwater, and they live in kind of murky areas. So if they feel threatened, they are going to defend themselves. That does not make them bad sharks. I love bull sharks. They're really kind of cool. And again, they're curious. When they're in clear water, they're more curious than they are defensive. Um, and like I said, these sharks actually are one of the only known sharks to be able to go from saltwater to freshwater. In fact, the story Jaws and the actual truth behind the movie and the books is actually believed that in, what was it, 1920s? I believe it was the 1920s. I should have looked that up before I started recording. Um, But during the time of in the attacks on New Jersey's coast, it was a bull shark, not a great white shark. Bull sharks can get pretty big. Um, Also, that's the other cool thing about the story is there was shark attacks up the river. They can go pretty deep up in river, and actually, we believe that is where they spawn. That is where they have their babies, their pups, because it makes sense. There's not a lot of predators that would try and take on a bull shark. Um, even even on the coast, bull sharks tend to not be messed with by any other animal, except for maybe orcas or other carnivorous whales. Yeah, great whites do get eaten by orcas, by the way. They're still not apex predators. Um, So it just makes sense that they would go upstream, and they're able to process. Their kidneys are really good. Their organs are really good at switching from saltwater to freshwater. They have been found. I know there was a River Monsters episode several years back where Jeremy Wade actually caught a bull shark upriver in Australia. And I believe there are some stories, or rather some researchers who have tagged bull sharks and found them going up the Mississippi River in the United States. These animals are very adaptive. Honestly, I would not be surprised if at some point, either in the far future or maybe not so far future, they eventually evolve to be freshwater sharks completely, or to be able to transition depending on stressors. I'm actually really surprised that the Great Lakes, I live near Lake Ontario, I'm really surprised that we don't have any records of bull sharks. We are the largest freshwater sources in the world. We're actually not too far from the ocean when it comes to the St. Lawrence River. There are some there are some things that would probably stop a bull shark from coming up, but I almost want to do a little bit of research to see if there's any history to bull sharks possibly coming up the St. Lawrence. But again, it's also very cold up here. Um, we're lucky if during the heat of summer we get up to 70-degree water in Lake Ontario. So maybe it's too cold for them. I'm not I'm not a shark scientist. I'm a geologist. Uh, so this is all the stuff that I have. Here are all of my sources. Of course, they will be linked in the description below. Um, this was a fun one because I got to talk a little bit about modern animals as well as historical and paleontological animals. Um, I liked it. I love sharks. I got to show off some of my fossil collection again. Um, So, if you guys have any other questions, if you have any comments, any suggestions for future episodes, leave that down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Um, if you have any other questions, obviously, yeah, that's just what I said. Sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained today. Um, Also, if you would like to, please like the video and subscribe. That really makes me happy. It makes me know that people are interested in what I'm doing. I'm still going to do it anyway because this is a great idea for me to keep up with scientific advancements out in the world. And of course, if you are interested in having any of the notifications go off, ring a ling ding 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 that bell, we will be having our, hopefully, crossing fingers. I've got a camera that hopefully will work on my PlayStation. Hopefully, we will be doing a stream this coming weekend, probably Saturday, um, maybe Friday night into Saturday. And we'll be doing, I think the first one we're going to do is we're going to do Ark, Survival Evolved. Um, but if you have suggestions for games that you'd like to see, leave that in the comments too. Ring ding the bell so you know when we go live for our gaming sessions and when we update. We update every Monday at 9 a.m. Um, so yeah, thank you so much for joining me again, and remember to stay digging, keep cool, and have a great day. See you next week. Bye bye.